We're going over chapter 10, which is going to be listing agreements. So let me ask you guys, before I even write it down on the board right now, what is a listing agreement? So what is a listing agreement? Okay. So what is that? In your own words, what do you think that is if you had to take a guess, or from your experience? Okay. Maybe you listed a property. Maybe you had someone sell your property. So someone said agreeing to sell a home. That's maybe one thing, but here's the thing. You ready? If I'm doing it for sale by owner, let's say that I'm just, selling my home on my own. Aren't I agreeing that I'm selling my home then? So so it's basically agreeing to have a realtor sell the home. Okay. Something. Yeah. So here's a couple of things that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you my hit points that I like to make about a listing agreement. Okay. When we're talking about that, a listing agreement is an employment contract. Okay. That's how I like to, an employment contract. Okay. Where you're employing the listing agent to find a buyer for your property. So here's the thing. A lot of people always say, hey, what you have to have for a listing agreement is you're actually allowing the realtor to market your home. So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit, okay? I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a couple seconds. Is a listing agreement, okay, and an employment contract for the agent to market your home? Let me know. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. So you're saying there should be marketing your home. So here's the thing. Kind of a trick question. Someone said no. Yeah, it is kind of, listen. I was playing trickery on you. Ooh, yeah, I like that answer. They're finding a buyer. So here's the thing. A listing agreement, I just kind of laid it out there for you. It is an employment contract for the listing agent to find a buyer for your property. Okay. Situation is this. It's never necessarily a agreement for you as the listing agent. I'm defining you as the listing agent. For you as the listing agent to market the home. That might be ancillary. That might be included with it. Okay. But that's not necessarily the main reason, the main focus of the listing agreement when we have one. Okay. So when we're talking about a listing agreement, it is an employment contract where the seller is employing the listing agent to find a buyer for the property. Because let me give you an example. I've worked with certain agents that do a lot of celebrity houses, okay? Now, celebrities, okay? Little known fact about celebrities. They don't like their stuff just out there, okay? So whereas to you as a regular lay person, okay, would basically say, oh, Mr. Real Estate Agent, please do come and photograph my home, photograph my master bedroom, photograph my bathroom, photograph all of these things. A celebrity typically is of the mindset that they're like, yeah, no, we don't want you really coming and photographing all this stuff and then putting it up on the Mulia, Trulia, Zulia, Realtor.com, okay? They don't want their stuff kind of out there, so what happens is in their listing agreements, they're probably going to a broker who has more experience with celebrities, understands the different clauses, the different things that they might have in there for protection for them, and understands that also they're going to want them to find a buyer without having to necessarily market the home in what we would consider conventional ways, okay? They might be doing it in a slightly different way, like they might be marketing to a pool of buyers that they already have. Like if they're a celebrity buyer, a celebrity agent, they might be doing that. But does that make sense? Think about that. Does that make sense that the listing agreement is a employment contract for that listing agent to find a buyer, not necessarily, market the home. Okay. So that's what I really want to hammer home with that. So let's go to the different listing types. Let's talk about the different listing types. okay? The different listing types. So the first one that we're going to do is, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to list them in order of least protective for the real estate agent or broker to the most protective. So first we're going to do an open listing, okay? An open listing. This is what I refer to as the floozy listing, okay? So for those of you who are laughing right now because you're like, hey, what's a floozy? A floozy is basically, you can Google it. The floozy listing right here, the open listing, is this. It's the seller employs multiple brokers, okay, to find a buyer for their home, okay? And the seller also retains the right to sell it on their own without paying a commission. So when is this going to be prevalent? When is this going to be something that's going to be the norm? Typically, when there's an incentive structure in place for the real estate agents to enter into something like this, or the real estate agents are all kind of competing on a high level, meaning like Manhattan has no MLS, okay? Manhattan has no MLS, means that if you list a property in Manhattan, if you have like a penthouse, okay, and you're like, oh, I would love to have this sold, you're probably going to go to Corcoran, Douglas Elliman as the seller and say to them, here, you all have an open listing. Go ahead, find a buyer, okay? And the first one to it gets the commission, okay? And the first one to it, and the first one who brings about what I refer to as a meeting of the minds, they're bringing about what's called procuring cause, okay? And what procuring cause is it's basically the person who starts an unbroken chain of events that leads to a meeting of the minds. Now, your textbook's actually going to say this is sometimes hard to define. Yeah, super hard to define sometimes and identify who is the procuring cause, because what happens is this. I just told you procuring cause is the person who starts an unbroken chain of events that leads to the meeting of the minds. So what it is it's left up for interpretation as to who is the meeting, who did bring about the meeting of the minds, and what is the meeting of the minds. Is it when they agreed to everything? Is it when the contingencies were all met? Is it when the contract was signed? Who knows? Because here's the thing. If someone said to you, oh, this person is the procuring cause because they wrote the contract, then why wouldn't we just call it writing the contract and say whoever wrote the contract is the one who's the procuring cause? Well, because sometimes there's no contract written, sometimes there's an offer that's made and that's a verbal offer, and then later on a contract signed. So what happens is this. There's a lot of times that you will have situations that the procuring cause of the listing agreement or the contract or the sale is not, okay, and let me just cross those first couple out. The sale, the person who's the procuring cause brings about the meeting of the minds for the sale of the property, is hard to identify. Now, what happens is this. Typically, you need to find out who is the procuring cause when there's a dispute of some sort. Like like a couple of agents are like, I brought about the buyer. No, that's my buyer. No, that's my buyer. Okay. And typically this is aired out in the realtor boards, the local realtor boards. So the local realtor boards, what they'll do is they have what's called a grievances committee set up. Now, I'm giving you a little more than what you need for your test. Okay. You just need to know what I've written down here, but I'm just kind of giving you a little extra so that you know how this works. Because if they do give you a question on it, maybe, I think it's doubtful, but if they do, you'll kind of have an idea as to how this works. So what happens is the local realtor board and the state realtor board, they're going to be the ones who are going to air out any grievances that two real estate agents have with one another, because they would be members of the National Association, Local Association, and State Association of Realtors. So realtors, basically what they are, they're a giant trade organization that you opt into, okay? And what they do is they lobby for us, pro-realtor legislation, stuff like that, okay? And they also clean out their own laundry, such as procuring cause, figuring out who's who, whatnot. And when you join the National Association, local and state level, you're agreeing to binding arbitration. So that grievances that I'm talking to you about, that's what you're agreeing to. So that's procuring cause and an open listing. Any questions on that so far? No? Excellent. Next, we have exclusive agency listing. So what is an exclusive agency listing? So this is when there's one agency, okay, / broker / agent working for the seller, right? So there's one broker, one agent, all that kind of stuff. But the seller reserves the right to sell the property on their own without paying a commission, okay? So basically the seller has the right to basically sell it on their own without paying a commission, okay? Without having to do any of that kind of stuff, all right? So what happens is this. There's one agency, and now here's the thing. Whenever there is exclusive in front of the name, okay? Whenever there is exclusive in front of the name, you must have that in writing, okay? You must have that in writing. So exclusive agency, you must have in writing. So next one that we're going to talk about is going to be the exclusive right to sell, okay? And what that is it's one agency, broker, or agent, okay? And they have the exclusive right to sell. They are owed a commission no matter who brings a buyer. So what happens is this. In an open listing, just to kind of recap these, in an open listing, the listing agent must be the one who secures a buyer. The buyer must be procured through ways of their own, okay? So basically what happens is if I am a seller and I go to Douglas Elliman, Corcoran, all these different agencies in New York, and I'm like, hey, here's an open listing. Please find a buyer for my home, okay? And these could be oral because what happens is there's no exclusivity. So this could be an oral agreement, okay? And it could be binding. Next one, we have the exclusive agency. That is where there's one agent. These must be in writing, okay? Any of the exclusive type of listings must be in writing because what happens is this. In order to prove exclusivity, kind of like when me and my wife go out on a hot date, okay? Me and my wife go out on a hot date, I have to wear my wedding ring so that it shows, hey, I'm a taken man, okay? Basically, what happens is when there's exclusivity with a seller and a listing agent, must say, hey, this is, someone said you better. Yeah, absolutely. Got to wear my wedding ring, okay? I'm a hot stud muffin. So what happens is this. When we have a situation where there's any exclusivity, we must put it in writing. Think about the story of where Stu's going out without his wedding ring, okay? Got to show exclusivity, okay? Got to make sure that it's in writing so that we could show everyone else, hey, I have this, back off. And in an exclusive agency, the seller retains the right to sell it on their own without paying any type of commission, okay? Now, exclusive right to sell. That is when the agency, so there's one agency, okay? There's one agency. And what happens is this. No matter who procures the buyer, okay? No matter who procures the buyer, okay? What happens is the the agent is owed a commission no matter what. Now, any questions on those types of listings? No. Okay. Now, I got to get into some things. I'm going to get into one other listing type, and here's what I'm going to tell you. The listing type is this, okay? If you ever see this on the test, a net listing is a listing that is based off of the seller net, okay? Meaning this, if a seller comes to you and says, "Hi, Stu, I just want to get $200,000 for my property," okay? I just want to get $200,000 for my property. Anything you get above that, that's all yours. I just need to net $200,000. In New Jersey, this listing type is illegal, okay? In New Jersey, this listing type is illegal. It is legal in certain states. So if you're watching the recording of this and you're in another state, might be legal in your state. Check with your local laws and regulations. New Jersey, not legal, okay? So let's now talk about the different ways in which a listing can be terminated, okay? This is how we're going to end tonight because I think it's really important, and I really want to get through this to you because the first one, I want to tell you, and I need to stress this, destruction of the property, okay? So they love asking you questions about the property catching fire. They burn the property down every single test. They love doing that. Love doing that, okay? Destruction of the property terminates a listing, okay? It terminates the listing, okay? And actually, let me cross off this. I'm going to leave it, actually. Listings can be terminated for these reasons, okay? Or let me say this. I will also say they will be. I'd rather say they will be terminated, okay? Will be terminated. So we're going to cross that out and say that, okay? Because I didn't want to leave this to ambiguity where Stu said they can. No, let me just say this, because this is in the textbook, this is under termination of listings. So I'm going to treat it as such and not go as light as I normally would on my wording on this one, and I'm going to make it definitive. So if the property is destroyed, it is burned to the ground, the listing is terminated. Do you hear me? The listing is terminated. You have to make sure what they're asking you in the question. Sales contract, we'll talk about that next week. But the listing will be terminated, okay? It will be terminated, meaning the employment contract between the listing agent and the seller is going to be terminated if the property is destroyed. Capiche? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you understand that. Another one is expiration. If the contract just if the listing expires, okay? If the listing expires, okay? Also, cancellation by mutual consent, okay? Cancellation by mutual consent, okay? So let's see the next one. Death of either party. Also insanity, okay? I don't know, your book puts that in there, so I'm going to put that in there too. And either party being the seller and the listing agent, right? Okay. So, cancellation by the broker would be another way that it would terminate, okay? One other would be cancellation by the seller. However, kind of asterisk there. Yeah, so that would be death of either party, death of either the listing. Now, let me actually clarify this because actually, you know what? I'm going to say this because you just made a good point. You said death of the broker. When I said either party, I know I said listing agent. I really meant, when I said listing agent, I meant the broker because they're the ones who have the agency relationship. So actually, the death of the listing agent, to clarify, guys, the death of the listing agent actually wouldn't automatically terminate the listing agreement. What it would do is it would be the death of the broker that would do that. So I'm up to now, and I hope that clarified it. So that's what I'm kind of doing. I'm kind of moving with the flow and correcting myself as we go. If there's something that I think we need further clarification on, like if it came out of my mouth and I'm like, let me just make sure you understand what that says. So now let's talk about cancellation by the seller. Now, they may be liable for expenses and that the listing agent has laid out. So like in higher end homes, celebrity homes, bougie homes, okay, that's definitely a possibility, okay? And let's see what else. Bankruptcy is the last one I would put in here. So those are all the ways in which a listing can and will be terminated. And that's why, like I said, I usually say can be. I'm putting it a little more harsh and say they will be terminated for these reasons. So do you guys have any questions, concerns, burning desires in regards to that? Yes, no, maybe so. Nothing? Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? That is about it for chapter 10. So